So hello, we are back. Another Monday, another stream, and I think I need to get closer to the screen here though. So yeah, another Monday, another stream, and I am back. I am Riho, if you didn't know, and I am a game developer. So today, as usual, I will be working on Office Management 101. And like I mentioned in the last stream, I will be working on the animation system of the characters in the game. So the goal here is to automate some things in the character sprite generation, so I can make specific parts of the character easier in the future. Specifically their heads. So that's the goal here today, and I might be drawing some sprites for that as well for testing purposes. So what else has been going on since last stream? Lots of things, obviously, with the virus news heating up all over the world, and I just saw that Latvia reported their first case. Estonia, my country, reported their first case last week. So yeah, we have it all over the place now already. Besides that, the wild nature here is running rampant. We have a lynx living in this town, a wild one, and it's been hanging around the outskirts of the town for a few months now, but last week it was reported seeing in a shed pretty much right next to my house. So even though he's probably not dangerous, it's still it's still a predator, wild animal living right next to me. So hi Bud, thanks for joining the stream. How's it going there? So more wild animal reports also noticed today that a pack of wolves were trying to attack a dog not far from here, maybe like 20 kilometers from here. So that's also a thing, I guess. But apparently the dog is safe. They only messed up the what's it called? The dog house. The dog itself wasn't in it at the time. So yeah, I'm definitely living on the countryside here. And what else? The Eurovision Song Contest for Estonian pre-selection was last week also, on Saturday. And I partially watched it. I was partially doing some other stuff, working on a YouTube video. So I didn't pay attention that much, but the song that won definitely wasn't one of my favorites. I think I like the song that got the third place the most. But we'll see if Eurovision, the big contest, is even held this year with everything that's going on. So anyway, APL asks what's the name of the links, and if I'm not mistaken, you named it Mr. Whiskers. So that's the name now. Or at least that's what I'll be calling it. But, you know, if any of you have any other suggestions for the name, then go ahead. But now let's get to the work. Let's get to work. So let me show an example of. By the way, this is the spreadsheet that we worked on in the last week's stream. I did not finish these ones yet, but I won't be doing that today either. But instead, let's take this for example. So this is how the heads spreadsheet looks like right now, and there's a lot of repeating heads here, which makes it kind of unnecessary. So what I want to do is have a spreadsheet where there's only like one of these, one of these, one of these, and one of these. And some games even would cut this down to 2. They would take, say, this and just flip it, and they'll get this one. And the same here, they would say take this, flip it, and get this one. And if you look at these specific sprites, they are actually just flipped. So, you know, I could even take that approach myself. But for some things, I do want the flexibility. So in that case, I still want to, I don't know, let's say this guy would have an eye patch on the left side or something like that, right? So if I flipped it, the eye patch would be on the right side instead of the left, so that wouldn't be right. So, you know, for such cases, it's good to have separate sprites for all the angles. Another thing, if I zoom in closer here, you can see that the head here is 1 pixel lower than this one, and that's because when the characters are walking, the head sort of and the whole body bobs up and down a bit. But it doesn't do that for all the animations. Like for the keyboard typing animation or the sitting animation, the head stays still. Now again, there might be some rare cases where I'd want the head to do something while the animation is going on. So there might be like, I don't know, head bobbing left and right or something like that. Wait, another thing that I wanted to check though is the camera stuff. If for some reason these exposure levers keep going haywire. So yeah, clicked through some of my older streams and I noticed that my face on the camera was awfully bright. I didn't like that. So hopefully it's better now. Also, I've noticed that sometimes I speak too quietly for the stream. So if that keeps happening, just let me know and I'll either speak up or turn the music down. Because you know, I can watch the levels in OBS, but I might not notice it every time. And I don't have my own voice in the headphones. I only have the music, so I can't hear it that way either. So yeah. So this was the stuff we did last week, but I'll just close it for now. I guess I should start with creating like a template sprite sheet for testing purposes. That uses the new version then. So how do I do that? I think the sprite sizes so far are 32 pixels by 64. Which also is probably too big. But let me think. The OpenGL that I'm using for graphics backend prefers if the sprite sheets are a certain size. So let's see, the width would be for 4 sprites would be 128, which would be fine. And the height, I guess, could be either 32 or even less. It could possibly work with 16 pixels as well. How high is this face? It's 12. Yeah, with hats and everything, 16 might not be enough after all. So I guess 32 would be a safer option, which would make the size. I would need to move the head up a bit as well then. But 32 by 32 would be like this. And I'm thinking I should probably define a variable that says where exactly the face is on the spreadsheet. So I'd have more flexibility in that. So let's create this new sheet then, 128 by 32. which is like this, and to make it easier on myself, I will make this sort of a guiding background here. Let's double check the size is 32, 32, 32, yeah, it's fine. So let's take this head and paste it into a new layer. Keep the canvas size. So like this, I guess. That's 11 pixels high, and that's 9. So I could move it down, no, up more. So now it's 10 and 10. 10, 10, 10. So let's take this one too. So I'll be needing this background as well here. Again, just so I get the width properly. And now I copied the wrong layer, which I keep doing. So is this correct? I think so. So it's 10 pixels here, 10 pixels here. And then we need this one. So yeah, like I was saying earlier, I made a video about Steam curators on Saturday, and I did some I showed some numbers how one of the curators affected the wish lists for Office Management 101 on Steam, which was very it had a very positive effect on the wish lists. And I also shared that analysis in a post form in Reddit, and it did extremely well. It might be one of my most upvoted posts on Reddit of all time. And it did spawn some discussion. A Reddit story. I wouldn't go quite that far, but yeah, but my main idea was to share my findings so they might help other game developers, but also to get more information about the subject. so I could learn more myself as well. Since I didn't really know much about Steam curation stuff before. Also, that reminds me, I started my own Steam curation group, but I haven't added the game there today yet. So I'll have to do that after the stream. So if you have any games to suggest to me that I could add to the list, then feel free. I can do that. It doesn't have to be released even. I can curate even games that haven't been released but that look interesting or intriguing. And I've been doing that quite a bit already anyway. And from the statistics, it seems that people actually seem to click more on games in my curation list that haven't been released yet. So it's an interesting finding from that as well. And in addition to that, thanks to the Reddit post, I had a chance to talk to another Steam 2 curator, and I got a lot of insight of how this stuff works from their point of view. And I'm thinking of doing at least one more video about the whole subject, or maybe even two or even more if more stuff comes up, because I do find it interesting how that whole ecosystem works, plus Steam does push certain curators on their front page, and I'm definitely very interested in which ones and why that is. I had my theories that other Steam curator didn't have like an overwhelming amount of followers, but they also noticed the same thing that my theory sort of proposes, that Steam pushes mainly by activity of the curator and not necessarily by their followers count. So even if the curator doesn't have that many followers, Steam will still show games they recommend on their front page, even if someone is not following that curator. So there's some like interesting algorithmic thing going on there. So anyway, while I was talking all that, I finished this spreadsheet, and now I don't know if I should make edits to it just yet, or should I just go to programming? Let's see. APL has mentioned that I should make a character face that resembles me, but I don't know. Maybe I'll try that later on in the stream. Depends on how long the programming takes. But I guess for now we can just go with this. So let's merge these layers. And see. I'm gonna make a copy of the original version of this. And I'm gonna save this as a copy as well. Just in case. And so APL says can't use the suit body without it. I guess that goes for my face sprite. So yeah, I'm gonna overwrite this mail one sprite sheet here. Flatten. And now for layering purposes, some head sprites also have another layer, like this one. Which is for this head. So the guy has longer hair in the back, which might be visible depending on the body sprite. So that's kind of why I have another I don't know, another layer of the head. It also might relate to the accessories that the character wears, like hats or glasses or something like that. But I'm not gonna get into that quite now yet. So let's make this work first. So character parts are held in this class, which is game character part, the class name. And here I've defined these identification numbers for what type of body part it is. I'm not quite sure why I've done it this way. And this is like really old code, probably from at least 5 years ago, but possibly even more. And I haven't really touched it that much. So this is the part that loads the texture for that. And then that code belongs in a museum. Yes, not wrong. But you know, I've definitely worked with code in my programming career that has been older than 5 years. So, you know, sometimes projects last long, and then you end up with these things that may be awful, but you keep them that way because redoing them takes a lot of time, and you know, it just grows out of hand. Yeah, I wonder, now that you mention it, I do wonder if there are museums that display software code, like, I don't know, code for something like Tetris or Pong or something. I think that'd be an interesting thing to have in a museum. In a company I used to work at, we had this Christmas party, I think it was, or something, some sort of a party. And someone printed out like the worst code that we had done over the years, like these snippets of code that were just awful, and printed them out, put them on the wall in the office, and then we had like a quiz where we had to guess who had written which part of those code pieces. And I do have to admit that at least one of those was mine. And I know it was horrible, yes, but I was really pressed in time at the moment of writing that. And I just had to get it done as fast as possible, and it ended up being awful because of it. But it worked, and that was the main point. So yeah, sometimes that sort of stuff can happen. But yeah, anyway, a museum of awful code would be also interesting, I guess. So another pod asks, did you like your job? For a while. For a while, programming websites was okay. And programming on its own, I've always liked. But some of the stuff that comes along with it, we did a lot of work for government institutions, and the way it happens often, at least in Estonia, but I know in other countries as well, is that they have budgets that are kind of on the low side. So, you know, we ended up cutting corners because of that. In addition to budget problems, they in many cases they didn't have the most educated people on their side handling the project, and educated in how the IT stuff works. So, you know, we had to do some education on our side, teaching them, but you know, they were not pros in the field, so they didn't really know what exactly to ask for, and that also made our job harder. And those project managers also had many other responsibilities beyond the working with us. So eventually I got really fed up with all that stuff, the bureaucracy of it all, and all that. Plus, Sometimes the work hours tended to be somewhat longer than I liked. So yeah, I definitely prefer the life that I'm living now. Working for myself, I'm making a lot less money, but I get to do things that I want. So anyway, I tend to pause any other stuff while I'm talking about these things. So sorry about that. But yeah, I'm just bad at multitasking. So anyway, I also have this file where the heads are defined. So based on this file, the game knows which files to load for the sprites. So it loads this file here. And it's divided to male and female. I'm not, this is also like an old part, and I'm not really satisfied with how that is done. So I might have to work on that part as well. Like for now, you can't put this head on. Let's see. Let's see an example. You can't put that head on this body, for example. Even though that might be a perfectly valid thing to do in some cases. So I'll probably remove the whole gender thing from here in the first place, and do it some other way. I'm not sure what's going on in my Dropbox right now. I'm seeing some things, some weird things popping up here. Hopefully it's not an issue that I should look into. But yeah, I'll deal with that after the stream. So anyway, yeah, I'll work on this gender stuff on some other day, but let's see, what else do I need to know from here? Color replacers is another thing that I'm not making full use of right now. So I do use it for replacing some colors on the skin. The way it works is that, say, let me find an example for it. Wait, I'm loading bodies here. No, not this one. Not this one either. Neither this. Yeah, this one. So, say this sprite has lighter skin tone, this one has darker. So for hands, I guess for like this, for example, the hand colors. It knows to replace the hand colors with something darker for this face, so it's synced properly. So that's what's going on in this color replacers. But what I mean by not making full use of it is that I could use the exact same system to make one like body sprite and just replace colors here for to get like way more options than there are right now. Or I could even make like a color choosing tool in the character editor. So when you're making your character, you don't have to pick from just the templates that I've made, but you could change the shirt color and the pants color, or what else? I mean, even hair color or eye color or stuff like that. In theory, I could do all that with the system that I have in place already. The question is, how would I solve that in the user interface side exactly? So yeah, I'm not sure yet about that yet. So anyway, another file that I need to open up here. Could be just random eye color. Yeah, I mean that might work too. Although if it is random and it accidentally generates I don't know, the same eye color as lips or the eye brush or something, that might be an issue. So if you had control over it, maybe that would be better, because then you can fine-tune it. Or I could just define like a few of them, like a few dozen maybe of eye colors, and when it's randomized it would pick from those. But yeah, that part is something for the future. It won't be hard to take care of, but it's just kind of, there are more pressing issues, I feel like, for now. So I don't remember exactly where the sprites are first loaded, so I could check. Could search for this. Okay, I guess it's in two separate places, which is kind of annoying. Maybe I should think about that a bit. But yeah, I don't know. But let's start here then. So what I'm mostly searching for right now is I guess where the combining of these different pieces happens. So the head, the body, the legs, the hands, and all that. Where they're actually combined into a single sprite in the game code. Because again, that part I haven't looked into for years. But if I'm correct, it happens here. Doesn't it? Okay, it happens at least here, but not only. So that is going to be kind of annoying too. It always is kind of messy when you have code doing the same exact thing in different parts of the overall implementation, instead of using a single function that each of those different places would call. And again, I'm not sure why I've done it this way, but I had a reason for it, I guess, at the time, but or maybe I just didn't think far enough. And to consolidate all that into a single function now would also be quite an undertaking, though. So we'll see. I'm gonna go through the code a bit, and then I'll decide what to do about it. But yeah, also in this file, load texture, that's the part that I'm looking at, that I'm looking for. So I guess this would be the place where I checked for the sprite size. So if it's what size is this? 512 by 256. If that's the sprite sheet size, then it would use the old version of this thing. And if the sprite sheet size is 128 by 32, then it would use the new version that I'm about to create here. So what is this though? Again, I don't really have much comments here. I have more than the last time when I was streaming some code stuff. So like I have a comment here that's saying that it checks if the part exists, because sometimes it might not. But what is this thumbnail thing? There's no comment about that. I mean, I kind of get it. Thumbnails. Thumbnails are the things that that are displayed in the list of CVs, I guess. So they're not the full sprites, but a smaller piece of it. Let's launch the game for a moment and I can show what I mean. Yes, yes. So this would be the thumbnail, I suppose, because you can't see the lower part of the legs. But I'm still kind of confused. What it is exactly? Okay. I guess the thing here is that the thumbnail texture is kept separately just in case for some reasons. Anyway, I don't want to get stuck on that for too long. So what other texture functions are there? Load texture. Is texture loaded? But if that's the thumbnail stuff it uses here, then what about here? Oh, okay, it doesn't use the function, it just uses the full texture here. Okay. Okay, I think I have a better understanding on what's going on here. No. Anyway, the way the combining of these sprite sheets works is that the game creates a sort of a buffer off screen in the video memory that is the same size as a full sprite sheet. So basically something like this. And then one by one it draws all the layers on the spreadsheet. Then because of the way how OpenGL stuff works, I have to take a sort of a screenshot of that buffer. And then I finally have like a fully finished animation sprites for that specific character. And then that spreadsheet, that new generated spreadsheet, is kept in video memory. So yeah, that's the sort of hack that's going on here. But in case of heads now, for the new stuff, for the new sizes, I can't just throw the full sprite sheet in the buffer in one go, but I'll have to do it like piece by piece, or like angle by angle. So I'd put this in the buffer in the right spot exactly for, let's see how many times, for 16, 32 times, and then this one 32 times, this one 32 times, and this one as well 32 times. So the best approach here would be, I guess, what does it even return? Texture region. Part thumbnail texture region. Place it here, and if this is not null, which means that null would be that it's not loaded for some reason, it doesn't exist. And here I would check for the size. Where can I get that? Get region height, I guess. Maybe I should make a separate function to check for that. Probably. So let's go by that first. I'll add a new variable for that. Wondering how should I call it? Should it be like should it be based on the implementation, like I don't know, like new stuff, or new generation implementation, or new loader implementation, or something like that? Or should I add more flexibility to it and define it as in how many sprites are on the sheet? I'm kinda liking that more. So sprite count. Default would be now I'm bad at math in my head, so kinda embarrassed about it sometimes, but you know, whatever. So I have 128 sprites on this sheet. So that would be the default or the old version. Yes, so guess here I'd find out. So if texture is null, then the sprite count would be 0. If texture is loaded, then get width. So if get width is, what would it be? 512. Then it would be assuming let's see, should check for the height as well. So maybe in the future I'd have even more versions of sprite sheet sizes. For example, maybe I'd have like these 2 rows only for some sprite sheets, or something like that. So I should check for the height as well. $256. Then what's this? Else. But yeah, I'll define these 2 cases that I have right now first, and then in the future I can add more if needed. So this would be 128 times 32. And then the sprite sheet count would be be 4. And then I'll make a function that gives the sprite count. So there we go. Meanwhile, let's check. Seems we even have some viewers looking at me coding, which I always find interesting, because I know at least some of you are not coders yourself, so like how much do you even understand what's going on? And how entertaining is it to look at? I don't know. I'm not sure I've watched that many programming streams myself. But even if I did, I'd usually at least understand what's going on. So But it's still nice to have people people watching the stream, of course. So thank you all. So where was I? Here I check for the sprite count then. For part, get sprite count equals 128, then proceed as usual. But else if it's 4, then we have to do some other stuff here. Also, what I wanted to do, make it so if I haven't defined the specific sprite sheet sizes yet, so if it's not one of these two, then it would unload the texture. So it would not try to draw the it would not try to draw the texture sizes that it is not aware of, that I've not defined. Now another thing that I need to do here is make sure the height is correct, because this height is only 32, but it's splitting it into 64 pixels, which wouldn't work. So instead of doing that, we check also we need to check the sprite count here, I guess. So if the sprite count is 0 or less, then also return an empty texture. But if the sprite count is 4, actually, instead of this, maybe I should do it like this. So if the get height is 32, then do it one way, else else do it the old way, so 32 here. And let's add a comment for a change. also need to define this variable here first, and then here. If we didn't get anything for some reason, this shouldn't happen, but who knows, just in case, so it doesn't crash here if something goes wrong. So, is 64 used anywhere else in the code here? I guess not. So that's that. I suppose for more flexibility I could also support four sprites on a sprite sheet that is 64 pixels high. But I'll deal with that later. Let's see what else. I guess now we'll get to drawing this stuff then. Now for the CVs, it's going to be a bit easier, I think. Because like I showed before, the thumbnail texture for the CVs is just like this one small sprite, and it's not animated. So the texture size here is defined as 32 by 64. So if I do load, let's see, I don't have that anymore. But let me get a full size sprite here. So the one showed in the CV would be this one. And there's something that I missed in the code because of that. So maybe I should be doing it here instead. And then I can remove this. Well, I can still keep this here, though. Okay, it doesn't let me add it anyway, so never mind. So this means I can take this back here and this, and remove this crap. The thing is, what it's returning here is the number of the sprite on the sheet. So say this sprite sheet, if it was split into like it says here, 32 by 64 pixel sprites, like this and this and this and so on. So it would split them and in the order that they're placed here. That gives each of the sprite a coordinate in this sprite sheet. In the matrix of it, so to call. So if this would be the x-axis and this is the y-axis, then this would be x 0, starting from 0, counting out. This would be 0 for the x and 0 for the y. This would be 0 for x and 1 for the y. And this would be 0 for x and 2 for y. And say this would be 1 for x, 0 for y. But this is the one that the CV thumbnail is using. So which is it then? If this is 0, 0, this is 0, 1, this is 0, 2. But since it's flipped in the matrix here, then y is first and then the x axis. Then it returns this one. But if we look at this sprite sheet here, this doesn't have any rows, so returning y axis of 1 or 2 would produce an error here because it doesn't exist. So for this new sprite sheet, it should be 0, 0. I don't know if any of that made sense to any of you, but I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to explain these things. For one, English is not my main language, which you probably could tell by my accent. But also, this is not stuff that that I usually have to explain to anyone anyway, so haven't really thought about it this way. The APL says we zoned out about an hour ago, which is fair. I don't blame you guys. So, you know, you can just listen to my voice for the ASMR effect, I guess. So, yeah. There could be perfectly valid reasons to watch this stream and not pay attention at all. So yeah, anyway, now that this thing is fixed, I can go back here. So this draw function also takes coordinates into account. And I think that needs some calculating now. So let's take this here for example. I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. Since I changed the position of the head on the y-axis, if I drew it just as it is, it would place the head above the body and would be too high. But the way that my engine works, leap.GDX, is that for some of the drawing stuff, instead of starting counting the y axis direction, so to say, from the top left corner, like most computer stuff does, it starts from the bottom left corner instead. So let me quickly draw what I mean. So usually when you have a graph of some sort on paper or somewhere, this is how we would usually make the directions, right? So this would be 0, 0, and sorry about my horrible drawing here, but you know, whatever. This would be the 0, 0 point, and y goes higher in towards, well, up, and x goes higher towards right. But in computer graphics, usually it's the other way around for y. So x is still the same, but y goes like this. And 0, 0 would be here. But for some reason, leap.GDX prefers this approach, which is uncommon in computer graphics. But anyway, what this means is that this sprite right now, if drawn at the coordinate 0, 0, would, I think at least, it would be placed like this, which would be kind of weird if you had a head between your legs, I guess. I'm not even sure. There's like 100 jokes, dirty ones that you could make about that, but I'm not gonna go there. Instead, I'll give you guys some moments to think about it while I'm drinking water. And then I'll carry on. So, anyway, what I want to figure out is what should the exact coordinate be for this. So add a background. So based on this, I figure since this is 19 pixels, so it's either like 19 or 20 or 18 or somewhere in that. I'm not sure. So if this would be 0, 0. I don't know, let's test with a 19. I guess. And that should, in theory, take care of it. Although this isn't quite right. I should instead check for the sprite height here. After all, so get region height if it's 64 and if it's 32. But I hard-coded this right now, but for more flexibility's sake, a better idea might be to have the option to define it here instead. So I guess I just have a Y here. So this way, I mean, I guess sometimes I could have the head lower or higher for some reason. Okay, so I don't know, say I want to make like a really weird hairdo that is like crazy high, and it wouldn't fit in this region. I could move the head down a bit here and then make the hairdo like this. The haircut, I don't know what's the correct word. So yeah, that's why I could have that flexibility, but I leave it hard-coded for the time being. So anyway, that's the CVs taken care of. But that's not all that I need. Now this is going to be the most complicated part. So before I mess around with that, let's see, load tool texture. That's another thing that I don't need to mess with right now. Set next body part. Set previous body part. I wonder if there is like a thumbnail function for this too. No? That's weird though. Maybe it's named something different. Which would be bad practice. But you know, sometimes that can happen. Sometimes that can happen in long projects as well. Like I make one function and then I forget what I named it exactly, and when I make something similar in some other place of the code later on, maybe years later, I wouldn't have remembered what I called it previously, and then I'll just call the new one something different, and then it's not synced. One way to solve this would be to document everything properly, but that would add a lot of time to coding all the stuff. So usually I just don't. And if I remember, I remember. If I don't, then I'll just have to live with it. So yes. There is also an older option for the animation system. I made it so that these don't even have to be combined from all kinds of different stuff. But I can make a full sprite sheet like this. And the game would know how to load this as well. Which would be useful some really like unorthodox characters that need like fully customized animation for some reason. I don't have any such characters right now, but I might have in the future. So this part just fully loads the whole spreadsheet and doesn't do anything else with it. But this is the part where the combining happens then. And I guess the thumbnail is then just picked from this spreadsheet. Which means I can copy this part and go from here. I don't need this. This is unnecessary as well. Also, in Java I can use variables from objects this way, but this is what I used a lot in the beginning. But these days I tend to prefer using functions for everything. So a better option would be have something like get texture here. But you know, since I don't want to waste time on that right now, I'll keep it like it is. And why exactly I prefer the functions is that in the functions I can add more functionality in case it's needed sometimes. Checks for errors and stuff like that. Okay, I can't. Can't exactly do it this way here. Because previously I was using texture region, which is one concept for OpenGL, and the texture is another. Well, texture region is a part of texture. So here I'm using the texture, and here I was using a texture region. But I need to use both here. So I could check for the height, but that I think I need a sprite height variable somewhere here too, in addition to the sprite count. And I might as well add a sprite width, but I don't know. There's probably not many cases where I would use it, so maybe it's unnecessary after all. But sprite height would be more convenient. So I'd set the height to 64 here and 32 here and 0 here. And then I can also make a sprite height a return function. And that means I could check for it here. And then I should also use it here. Wait, check. For the sprite count here though. Which is another thing that I missed earlier. So this comment goes here, and I could add another comment here. Can use it here as well. Get sprite height is 64. And sprite count as well. I shall check for both of them here. So 128. So this is the old version. And the new one will be 32 and sprite code 4. And then instead of the thumbnail, I need to split the sprite sheet into texture regions the same way. I'm doing it here. So this is sprite part texture region. Thought of something else right now. Did mention I don't need the width. Wrong file. I did mention I don't need the width because it's going to be 32 anyway. Pretty much always. But it's better to have a function for it instead of hard coding it in different places. Again, for more flexibility and whatnot. And that I would use here too. Okay, and did I use it guess here, but that's fine as it is. Also, I guess I should define a function for the Y positioning of the sprite too, so it's not hard coded here. So instead I'd use part get Y position or something like that. And again, for now I'll return just 19 here, but later on it would load this one here, this variable. So Last Wishers asks, hello, by the way, don't tell me you are developing Open Transport Tycoon. No. No. But I am working on a tycoon game. It's called Office Management 101. And I'll show it in a moment once I've finished up some of the implementation here. So you'll see what the game looks like. It also has isometric pixel art the same way Open Transport Tycoon has. But yeah, nice to have you here. If you're a first-time viewer, then I'm definitely interested in how you found the stream. So, you know, feel free to bitch in on that. But yeah, what I usually do on these streams is more on the pixel art side. I draw, and then sometimes I do some coding on the stream as well, but that's more rarely. And some streams I do on some streams I do music instead. So I try to mix it up from week to week. So you found it just by browsing. Interesting. So I guess I picked the right category for the stream today then, because I also keep mixing those up from week to week. Sometimes I put the category as art, sometimes I put it as what is it, music and production, or music production, or something like that. Music and composing, whatever, something in that. And I could also set it to my game's name, but I think this tech category is better for people to find it. So yeah, Last Wishers is a developer for over 20 years. And when you see tycoon development, you just get in. Yeah, I don't really know how many other tycoon games are being developed on stream. So if you do know of any streamers that make tycoon games, I would definitely want to see some myself. I also host some other streamers on my channel, but I'd like to have more of those. So, you know, if any game developers that you know are doing awesome stuff, I'd like to check those. Anyway, sometimes when I get to talking a lot, I forget to code. I'm bad at multitasking these things, which is not your fault. It's my fault totally. But you know, I'll try to manage somehow. So anyway, what I was doing here was finishing up this part. I was gonna make this function. So what language do you code in usually? And are you a streamer yourself as well? I'm also interested in that. PHP. Yeah, actually most of my career I was a PHP developer, Drupal mostly. What? Okay. Yeah, Drupal mostly because I was employed by a company that did Drupal development here in Estonia, and Laravel, yes, I also used actually for the some of the backend of this game. I can quickly show that actually. So I have this thing in the game where I can where people can send me feedback, bug reports, comments and whatnot. They'll put it here, their email if they want to, and then this goes through an API to a Laravel site that I made, which collects all the feedback. I can browse it there. I can actually show that as well. So I can log in there and see that people have sent me something, and I can reply there, and they receive the feedback straight into the game if they have not inserted their email. So let me check. There might be some sensitive info here though. So I wonder how like people's email addresses and whatnot. So darn, actually based on that I can't really show it on stream, I guess. So sorry about that. So anyway, I should maybe make some screenshots sometime so I can show them around. Just for cases like this. Anyway, that's a Laravel site. Another one that I worked on a few years back was a ticketing site for a client. But ticketing isn't the right word. What's it called? Well, an event ticket selling portal, sort of. So people can insert their events there, and people can buy tickets there. So that was also on Laravel, and it was a client that hired me for freelance work. So a way that I finance this game development usually is by doing freelance work, and mostly that is web development. But yeah, I don't have much more experience with Laravel beyond all that. Beyond those two sites, but I like it. It's a good platform, and Drupal is also good for some things, since there's like tons of modules that you can use. But the problem with Drupal is that if you need to change something or have some functionality that the module has not been meant for, then you're in trouble, and it's sometimes awful to figure out what's going on because it's not documented well enough or whatnot. So yeah, on the other hand, Laravel doesn't have as many modules for everything, but that just means you need to write more code yourself, but at least you understand better what's going on. So, you know, it has its good sides and its bad sides, both of them. But yeah, this game is in Java, which is also it's also like a somewhat questionable choice maybe for games, but the engine that I'm using for it, called tulevik.EU, is free, which was my main argument for it. Also, I started it as a mobile game, and tulevik.EU is a good choice for mobile games, or at least it used to be. But I pivoted towards PC later on, when it kinda started making more sense as the game grew. So yeah, that's how it is. Anyway, I was about to make a loop here. Anyway, just to explain what I'm doing right now, since you probably didn't see it earlier, I have this system in the game that combines pieces of sprites, like this body, for example, and a head, for example, and legs and hands and whatnot, into these fully sized characters and their animation sprites. And what I was doing was that I have a big sprite sheet like this, which is kind of annoying to draw, because I'm just copy pasting these heads around, and they have to be in the right exact spot, and it's kind of annoying to do that. So instead, I figured for most cases, these four rotations of the sprite would be enough for heads. So I'm just making sure that the game knows how to load this new version of the sprite sheet, while keeping the old version functional as well. So that was the idea behind today's stream, and I've been at it for 2 hours already, and usually I finish up by this time. But last week I went for 3 hours or even more, and it's not impossible that today I'll be going for even longer. But we'll see. It might not take as long as I thought earlier either. Depends kind of on how much I speak and how much I actually work. So, how many times does it need to draw? 4 by 4, I guess. I tend to be kind of messy when I'm coding for the game. When I'm doing something for a client, I'll most of the time more, how to say, I pay attention to the quality of the code more. But when I'm doing the game, this is something I'm doing for myself mostly, so sometimes I take shortcuts, sometimes I leave it messy because, you know, it doesn't really matter to me as much. So I don't really comment that much and so on. I'm the only programmer at this point, so I don't really need to explain my code to anyone else either. So. So I have this array here of sprites. Wait a minute. I also need to add an angle here. So what's gonna be happening in this loop is first it takes this and draws it 4 by 4 times on the sheet like this, and then it takes the next face sprite, does the same for these. Then it takes this one, and for these, and so on. So I guess I could name this variable here angle or rotation or something like that, and iterate it 4 times. go here. X times sprite width, I guess, plus angle times sprite width times 4, and then sprite height. Now sprite height will need some exceptions, but I'll explain it in a moment. I guess this is just y times sprite height plus the positioning. But yeah, the Y positioning will need some exceptions because the head will be bobbing up and down in some sprites for the animation. So for this sprite frame, Y would be 19, but for this it would be 18 if we start counting from the bottom left corner here. Which is something I was explaining earlier. How libgdx does it in a weird way, where the y coordinate starts from the bottom left corner and increases toward well, upwards. So yeah, but I'm not sure how exactly should I define those exceptions. I guess I need to make an if statement here for that. So if y equals 0 or y equals 3, these are the rows where the bobbing happens, the first row and the last row. And what is it? Every other sprite, I guess. X. What's this called even? Modulated mod by 2 equals 1. And then it subtracts 1 from the Y position. But I'm not absolutely sure about those numbers yet. But I think that should be it. So unless I messed up somewhere majorly, it should work. We'll see in a moment. Wait, not the heads, the heads. But yeah, I guess we can see already that it doesn't work. So back to the drawing board. Where does the problem occur then? So usually what I do in these cases is add a bunch of debug code that just spits out a lot of nonsense. And probably it's my PHP background that shows here, because that is how things are often done in PHP. In software programming, you can go step by step through the code, but I don't really do that with this game because there's too many connected parts here. There's Java, there's Lua code, there's the engine in the background, and lots of other stuff. So, I mean, I could add breakpoints and whatnot, but I usually don't. So, first of all, I can check if this part is loaded correctly. So sprite count. And actually I can even place it here. But I also need this information, which is probably why it's better to put it here after all, so I don't need to mess around with all that. I can already check then if this part loads properly. So you can't really see, but it will output that into my console. Or you can maybe see it for a moment, it's here. Nah, too late. Yeah, I've set up my OBS stream to switch the game to full screen now on the stream view. Even though on my computer I actually have I have it in a smaller size. So, okay, at least I know this part loads. What next? Get thumbnail, I guess. Here, and then I can check where the drawing happens. It could be that the coordinates are wrong, so perhaps I should put a log out for those. Then Y, and I don't know, these should be enclosed probably. So let's see now. Yeah, okay. In the debug, I'm already seeing that these are way too big. Oh wait, I should add these here though. Maybe it was just that. Okay, these now look more correct. You said the S word. Just kidding, says Bud. What's the S word? If it's bad, you probably shouldn't say it. I don't... I think I said something else and maybe it sounded like it then. I don't know. Sorry if that was the case. So okay, the coordinates look right. So why is it not? So why is it not working then? I mean, one test I could do here would be to fill this sprite sheet with just some nonsense. So let's do that. Like, I don't know, green. Should have made a copy though first, just in case. So maybe that will give me some ideas, but what could be wrong? But no green blobs nowhere either. So the question is, does it even... Does it even load the texture properly? It must be loading something, because otherwise it wouldn't even reach this part of the code. Because it checks firsthand if the texture is null. It rewrites it here. That's what might be going on. So this should be here. Yeah, it might have been just that then. Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, I guess the issue was then that I drew it properly, but then it redrew it with emptiness. But apparently not. It was good guess anyway. So then what? What else can I check for? I remember when I first wrote this whole part of the code, I also added a way to save the generated sprite sheet sort of as a screenshot or as a BNG file, so I could check better what was going on. So in theory I could do that now as well, but I don't know. I mean, I'll use that as a as an option if I can't figure out what's going on otherwise. So Bod asks, what is the percentage status in your own opinion on the game? You mean like how done the game is? And I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it would be hard to say even the ballpark figure right now, because on one hand it depends on what do I end up implementing. Like what functionality will make it into the game and what won't. How many levels it will have, how much variety in all the furniture and characters and whatnot. What else? Like how much music it will have and so on. So I haven't really like drawn out the timeline for the full version like that. The way I have it set up right now in my task management is that I've just thrown a bunch of small things and also bigger things that I want to do in the list there, and just open it from time to time and see what I want to work on, and then go from there. So yeah, it's really hard to say where I'm at. I mean, engine-wise, I'm probably way past 50% by now. Content-wise, I'm definitely below 50% though. And since I haven't really done much content so far, I don't really know how long that would take either. So yeah, hard to say. Also, I'll probably release it first as an early access game. So it won't be a full game at that point anyway. I don't know, let's say 50% and then call it a day, I guess. But honestly, I have no idea. But I do know the major features that I want to do before releasing it to early access. And yeah, Apple APL is already announcing headlines. Half done. You heard it here first. Yeah. This is how rumors spread. Anyway, let's get back to debugging this stuff. Was stuff the S word that I was saying? Or skookies. I do not know. So why does it not work? Oh shoot, that's the word. No, I do not think I said that word. I don't really curse that much. At least not knowingly. Okay, it depends on the company I'm in, I guess. Like when I'm talking to closer friends, then I might curse. But online, I mostly don't. Because that's not the... I guess that's not the person that I want to come across. Wait, come across as. And no, that was not the A word. So yeah, lots of talking and none of development. So I wonder if I hard coded some coordinates in here, then what would happen? So this one is being shown, right? So the y coordinate would be, say, 64, then it should show up. So let's try that. So let's keep x as it is and put 64 here. And let's see what happens. Nothing happens, apparently. Darn. That's the D word. Okay, what about putting 0 here then? If that doesn't work either, then I'd have to assume that the texture isn't loaded properly or isn't split properly or something like that is going on after all. What if I draw the full texture here instead of the split stuff? Nope. So what am I missing then? Could try checking some other parts of the game. Okay, this doesn't work. What about this? Yeah, it's still a headless, horseless man. Ah, but this works. So that's at least something. Uh-huh. So the problem would be either here or the thumbnail that was shown in the character selection. Is coming from somewhere else, not from this part of the code, which could also be the case. So before I make any conclusions, let's try it like this. The APL says you can do it. Yes, I mean, there are no unsolvable problems. And I do believe that I will eventually figure it out. Hopefully it will happen on this stream though. Yeah, I mean, guess it's gonna be a long one. We're nearing 3 hours in 20 minutes. And I might not necessarily have solved this in 20 minutes yet. But yeah, the question is, how come it worked for the CV? And I can also check if the head is in the correct position in the CV. And what do you know it is? So whatever I do here works. Well, in this part of the code, this works. And this get thumbnail thingy works. But this doesn't. So what's the difference then? I should turn it back to green as well. So sometimes when I get stuck on programming problems, I just sleep on it, and when I come back with a fresh head, I might have an idea how to solve it. Or sometimes I just randomly wake up at night and my brain has somehow solved the problem in sleep or wherever else. I just wake up and suddenly I know how it works or what's the solution. So it's weird how the brain functions sometimes. But I also do think that I can just brute force it through this somehow. So here I split the texture by width, by height into texture region. I take the first sprite, return it, and then I draw it at here, and that's that. Also, I should be using this here. And here I do the same thing. I split the texture by width, by height into texture region, and then I draw it. And that should be it then. And it seems to be the same. So the logical conclusion would be that the coordinates are wrong. But I kind of already established that when I try to draw it on the specific coordinates I provide here, it still didn't work. But let's double check that theory again. Nopers. Does not work either. What if I try a bunch of coordinates? Like, I don't know, 0, 0, 32, 64, let's put some more. Oh, I figured it out. I was trying to draw this dot texture instead of part dot texture. And this dot texture is the one where the drawing is going on, not where it's coming from. So that was what was going on here. Yeah, always double check the variables. So, fingers crossed that I solved it now. And yeah, this is This is the face. Yep. That solved it. Also, I closed it too soon, but actually I want to see what the green box look like in the game. Yeah, there you go. Well, that's not weird at all, is it? Okay, enough of that. Let's put the correct head here. Wait, what's this though? Why are you stepping on heads? Right, so there's still something up with whatever I'm doing here. Okay, first of all, I think this should be like this. Wait, no, not 260. No, 256. Why? It's because the y-axis is flipped like this. Yeah, the y-axis is flipped, but the rows go from up to down. So that's my logic behind that. I'm not sure if that solved it already, but let's check. Math. Well, it apparently made it worse. But you know. So maybe not 256, but then 192. Let's try that. I mean, if I actually thought about it and I don't know, wrote it down on paper or somewhere, then I'd figure it out properly. But I'm just shooting randomly right now. Guessing, so to say. But yeah, maybe I actually should do this. Should throw it out somehow. So let's start from here. Okay, so first row. Should be placed at this coordinate, which is how do I check this? Okay, down in the corner there's a coordinate indicator. So no, wait, it still should be this, which is 192. So first row should be at y coordinate 192. So first row is y0 times bright height, but it doesn't matter, it's 0, and 192 minus 0, so it's 192 plus whatever offset we had, which was 19, which is this. Well, anyway, this 19. So first row should be correct then. Second row, y is 1 and the coordinate should be 128. Which is 192 minus y, which is 1, times bright height, which is 32. Aha, here's the problem. This has to be 64, not 32. And then the rest would be correct then. I think so. Let us see. And there we go. It works. Except except for the sitting one. I just realized something that I didn't think about before. But the y offset for sitting should be lower than walking, right? So, how do we know that number? We copy this out into a new image. And then we take this head sprite here and paste it into a new layer. I'm gonna fill it with green again. And here we find that this offset should be 16 instead of 19. So the sitting row is where y is 2. No, 1. So it's 0, 1. And yeah. So where y is 1. And there we subtract 3 from the y position. Let's see. Did that solve that? Although the angle might need work here too. Not sure. This angle is correct. But I'm not sure about this pixel here. Because it's weirdly dark. Can check the body beast that he has. Don't know which one it is. Is it this one? No. It's this one. Oh yeah, it does have that dark pixel here, so okay. Looks like it's working then. And that's 3 hours up, so I guess let's take another look though. But I guess I won't be drawing that face of mine this time. But maybe next week then. And maybe I can even draw multiple faces then. Because now, when I've finished this whole thing, it will be much easier to make heads for the characters. Draw your face. Sure, I can do that too. I mean, it's kind of complicated at this resolution. It's not going to be photorealistic, or maybe it's not even going to be recognizable, because there are some some things that just won't work. It would get either too noisy if I got too many pixels in a small area, or there is not going to be enough room to add details. So, you know, we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I'm glad to finally having this working. Just in case, let's see him walk around a bit. chair. Just to make sure that it's all working. But it seems to be. Yep. Okay then. Let's start wrapping it up then. And APL says it's a challenge. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but let's try. So all you need now is the 4 angles for a new face, says APL, asks APL. Yes. From now on, when I make the heads, I can make these 3 angles and 4 angles. Sorry, and that's all it takes. So that also means that it will be easier for modders, for mod makers to add new heads into the game, which I hope is something that people would want to do. So if you want to do it, I can talk you through it. But yeah, you'd need the new version of the game first, though. So, you know, you'll have to wait for that first. Anyway, I am going to switch the scene to my face. So, some last thoughts. Got some work done. Talked a bit. Have some ideas for the next week's stream. So yeah, it sounds like a productive evening. Now what I will be doing off the stream is I can actually show it. I can switch back to the coding scene for a bit. What I've been working on last week is the editor. So, you guys don't have access to this thing yet, but hopefully eventually we will have. And what I added last week was this file menu here. Previously, all those buttons were in this toolbox here. All of this looks ugly and messy, and it's fine. But I hope to clean it up eventually. Oh yeah, toolbox. I say toolbox, but my chat and face was covering it. This is the toolbox. So I added this file menu up here. The functionality of it was implemented like years ago already in parts, like saving and loading and all that. Even undo. Pod says you would pay $40 for the editor. No, eventually I will release it for free with the game. It's like if you own the game, you'll own the editor as well. I will not make this a separate DLC or anything. That would be just That would be awful from me, I think. So anyway, with the new building system, I totally broke the editor. So right now it's not possible to create new buildings or any buildings in the editor. And I've been working on adding that functionality, but for now I added this selection tool and I'm not sure where I'm going to place it. The button itself, I mean. There's some logic that I need to figure out in how to organize the tools. But anyway, this selection tool pretty much is the same as the one in the game. I use the same sprites, but what I created is this create LUT functionality or button that creates this area. This is like the plot of land that you can either buy or rent or something in the game. And this is the area where you can place your buildings on top of. And not only buildings, but maybe you'd also get to make roads in this area. I somehow broke this placement tool the other day though, so it's kind of twitchy for some reason, but yeah, I'll look into that later. Anyway, that's how it would work in the next version of the game. So you'll have these plots of land on the map and you can buy them or rent them or something, and then place your buildings on top of them. So once I finish this LUT tool thingy, I'll add building creation back into the editor, and then some other stuff too. I had these special locations in the editor previously, like it had to manually place where the exits for the office are, but that wouldn't work now anymore because in previous versions of the game you didn't have the option to put the exit door somewhere else or remove it or move it or whatever's. But now in the new version you'd have that option. So these predefined exit locations wouldn't function with that anymore. So the game would have to somehow detect where the exit doors are and then calculate the paths from that. But yeah, this was just something that I had in the game, so it would be easier for the path finding to find the exits. Another one is elevators. There's elevators on one of the maps, which isn't available to the public but only to testers right now. And for elevators I had these markers in the map editor. That also wouldn't work anymore if people wanted to place elevators in the game on their own. So I'll have to figure out something to replace that as well. Now this home tag was the square where people would go to sort of disappear off the map. And what else? CEO is the place where, when the game starts, where the CEO is first placed. So maybe I'll even have to figure that out somehow. So yeah, there's like some things to think about for me when it comes to this stuff. And I can't properly release the new version for the testers before I've fixed all this. But yeah, I'm getting to it eventually. So okay. That was not something that I was planning on adding to the stream, but why not, right? So actually I might work on the editor on one of the streams in the future too, because it would, you know, be something different again, and something you don't get to see that often, because usually the editor doesn't need as much work as the game does. So anyway, I want to thank you guys and gals for watching again. I really appreciate hanging out with you every week, and I will be back next Monday, unless something unexpected happens meanwhile. And what's the time zones again? I think it's 6 p.m. GMT and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If I'm wrong, recheck the schedule under the Discord stream. Discord, I said Discord, under the Twitch stream. But I'll definitely also give a shout out on Twitter and Discord and other places when I'm about ready to go live with the stream. What else? Well, yeah. I hope you all stay healthy. You stay safe, and hopefully we'll see another. We'll see again some other time. So goodbye.